it's funny. My wife thinks my entirety of my medical and health and wellness information now comes from Instagram. And I joke with her. I'm like, yeah, probably it does. But that's because nobody will tell me. The government hides information from us. Big Pharma doesn't want us to know about it. So what I want to start with is like, when did this all start? We thought that the government was doing food pyramids and keeping us healthy. And the more I find out, all this was a big farce.
Yeah, so I think it's important to start with understanding how we got to this. I call it like a pill for an ill culture in the first place, right? So I think we need a short history lesson on the medical industrialization complex. So in the early 1900s, John Rockefeller saw this huge money-making opportunity in the American medical industry, and he set out on an absolutely ruthless mission to put a stop on all natural medicine. So at the time, in American culture, herbal and natural medicine were extremely popular. In fact, half of American doctors and med schools were teaching and using primarily holistic medicine. They were talking about things like a proper diet, at-home remedies, tinctures. That was the default method for dealing with most ailments, and it wasn't the outlier, which is what we see today. So John Rockefeller hires this man named Abraham Flexner to submit what we now call the Flexner Report to Congress in 1910. And this report concluded that there were too many doctors and med schools in America, that all of these other healing methods, which of course had existed for hundreds or thousands of years, suddenly were unscientific. Rockefeller wanted a way to make money with the byproducts of his oil refinement, because we know that he was in the oil industry. And so his solution of what to do with all of this extra stuff he had created was to integrate it into the pharmaceutical industry, what we now know as the pharmaceutical industry. And with Abraham Flexner creating this report for Rockefeller, he was like, I'm going to reward you. I'm going to give you a spot for life on my board with the Rockefeller Foundation, et cetera. This was their diabolical plan. And unfortunately, Congress ate it up. They asked no questions. And so that led to the pill for an ill, or monetization of medicine, that is the standard of care today. So at the time, everybody practicing natural medicine or looking to get to the root cause of disease were basically laughed out of town. It was quackery. And so the indoctrination then was really just beginning, and we're still battling overcoming this stigma with naturopathic doctors, with homeopathy today. And
so in med schools today, do how is that affected what doctors get taught?
Today, what you're seeing is maybe a couple weeks, if spent on nutrition, and almost the entirety of somebody's med school experience being spent on pharmaceutical drugs. So
what that means in layman's terms is, hey, when somebody's ill, doctor, your answer is, here's the drug you give them. We're not going to talk to you about how to solve the problem they have. We're just going to tell you about the pill you can give them.
Yes.
Is that fair?
Yes. So John Rockefeller gave over $100 million to hospitals and med schools to help make this transition easier, meaning transitioning out of natural medicine, that there are natural ways you can heal yourself with food, with natural herbal remedies from the earth, transition them out of that, and instead asking them to create this similar chemical reaction using his oil byproducts that he could patent, mass produce, and sell in a pill form.
I mean, it explains so much now, because whenever I go to the doctor for any ailment, pain, you name it, whatever it is, they'll say, okay, if you have trouble sleeping, we'll give you Ambien or one of those other drugs. If you have a pain issue, here's the opioid that we can give you. The default isn't how do we solve the pain problem, the reason you're not sleeping, why you have a weight issue. It's here's the pill we'll give you.
Yeah, exactly right. And how long are your doctor's visits, Sean? When you go to the doctor like that for your checkup, how long would you say on average those checkups last?
10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I would say that by minute 2, they've got the pad out. And they're like, so for this, we're going to give you this. For this, we're going to give you that.
Right. So what we've got here, you have Big Pharma making the problem worse. Speaking of these 10-minute wellness checkups, let's talk about depression. There is no scientific evidence to support the claim that chemical imbalances in the brain are the cause of depression, right? Maybe somebody watching this is shocked hearing that. Yet pharmaceutical companies will sell you antidepressants where there is abundant evidence that these drugs actually lead to more depression and increased rate of suicidal ideation. If you say something enough, this is the entire pharma marketing scheme. If you say something enough times like, oh, there's a chemical imbalance in the brain, that's what causes depression, people will just start believing it as fact, even though that doesn't exist. And so when people take the drug, they are feeling worse. They're gaslighted. They're told that they will feel worse without it. And then they are given another drug. So that's how they're increasing these profit margins. You can say, I think somebody who's spoken out a lot about this is Tom Cruise, which you can say a lot about Tom Cruise. Okay, I definitely don't agree with him on a lot of things. But he has been somebody, one of the only people really in Hollywood who has been talking about this propaganda with antidepressants, for example, for a very long time. They lied about cholesterol to sell you statins. They lied about healthy fats in food to sell you processed deadly trans fats. They lied about the COVID vaccine. They lied about a chemical imbalance to sell you antidepressants. So you follow the money, okay? And I know that a lot of people have concerns about kids. Okay, so what about the targeting of children in particular from pharma? We are seeing nearly 10% of children ages 3 to 17 being diagnosed with anxiety. This is according to the CDC.
Right.
Almost 5% of kids 3 to 17 are being diagnosed with clinical depression. In a 10-minute wellness checkup, which you agreed, that's about how long these appointments are, you can get a life-altering drug for your child, but you're likely not asked about screen time as a parent. You're not asked about what you're feeding your family, even though, iPad time, that's known to increase anxiety. What your children's eating, which typically is a diet full of food dyes, artificial food dyes, which we know increases anxiety. You're not asked about any of that. And that's important because there's a distinct gut-brain connection when it comes to eating food dyes that also leads to worsened anxiety. Instead, these parents are offered Lexapro for kids as young as 7.
So just think about that for a second, right? I mean, as you said it, I'm thinking to myself, you're going to see a doctor. Here's the kids my problem having. I've been reading that book by Jonathan Haidt. I obviously read the first one, The Coddling of the American Mind, about how social media and screen time has affected kids, right? That's an obvious answer. Hey, maybe you should take the screen away from the kid a little bit more. Instead, it's here's the drug that we'll give you.
Right. Yeah. And I think what's also interesting is people don't realize that these artificial food colorings are actually banned in several other countries. These are ingredients.
And I joked about the Instagram account, right? You know, these red dyes and whatever. I see that on Instagram all the time that they're banned in all these other countries. And yet, where's our government, Alex? I don't understand that. I joked for a while. I'm like, this can't be true because how would the CDC or the NIH or the FDA allow this?
So we know that these food dyes worsen symptoms in autistic children. We know that other countries like Canada, Norway, Austria, the UK, they've already banned them. Kellogg's actually is a company that makes different cereals without food dyes for kids in other countries. And yet they continue to make them for American kids, despite hundreds of thousands of moms this summer asking them to stop, signing a petition. And Kellogg's responded, Sean, I don't know if you saw this, but their excuse was, well, your kids like it. I'm not joking.
Wait. Just hold on. I don't want to overlook what you said. So there is a Kellogg's cereal of whatever in Europe that is available that doesn't have these dyes and whatever preservatives. And then there's one they give to America because we'll allow it. Is that right?
Exactly. So the American mom,
how?
Because we are buying it, because we're willing to buy it. So until American moms wake up to this and are like, hey, my kid is like acting like a hellion, not taking into consideration what am I feeding him, continuing to give your money to Kellogg's, they will continue to make these cereals.
But the piece that I'm missing, and I just said it a second ago, is where's the CDC, the Department of Health and Human Services, the FDA, the NIH, like what all of these studies and things that they regulate. They tell us that we can only have 2 drinks a day of alcohol. Where are they to say, hey, red dye number 52 is bad for you?
Okay, so I'll tell you why. Because everybody who is sitting on the boards, like the NIH, they are all bought and paid for by these companies. There is a woman. Okay, did you see? A few months ago, there was a special on 60 Minutes. It was all about Ozempic, right? Ozempic is the new drug that everybody is talking about. There is a woman who is a Harvard medical doctor. And she is the main doctor that they're asking about Ozempic. She's talking about the benefits in this 60 Minutes special. Turns out she is receiving money from Ozempic. And yet she is allowed to go on TV talking about, like, this is the next great thing for weight loss. Interestingly enough, this same woman, this same Harvard medical doctor, is also on the board who is deciding our dietary guidelines in America. She is the one who is telling your kids what they should or shouldn't be eating at school. Now, you tell me, a woman who is accepting money from Ozempic and who gets to decide what your kids eat, do you think that it is in her best interest to add a bunch of processed food that is going to make your kids fat to the lunch menu or not?
By the way, don't you love this? We're going to give you stuff that'll make your kids fat, and then we will find a drug that you'll have to get on to get unfat, to lose the weight, and then we'll tell you to keep eating the food, and then you take more drugs. I mean, it's like this vicious circle.
Right. So this is the crony capitalism. This is the rigged system that we're dealing with. It should be a part of conservative talking points and ideology to point out this corruption and put a stop to it. So this is highly concerning. So we want American citizens, right, as conservatives, we want American citizens to be able to make informed choices. But what my argument is, and I talk about this on my podcast, The Spillover, with all the interviews that I do with people that work in these industries that have a lot more experience in this subject matter than me, is I am saying, you can't ask people to make informed decisions when the entire system is rigged.
Bingo. That's it. That's why I joke that I find all this stuff. I listen to your podcast. I watch these Instagram clips. I literally was in my dermatologist's office the other day, and I said, I got a silly thing to ask you. I know you probably, like, I know you're going to laugh because I saw this on Instagram, but you always tell me to put sunscreen on. And I'm like, I'm really good at it now because I've had enough zapped off me. But now I'm reading that all these sunscreens have really bad chemicals in them. And she goes, yeah, it's true. I go, wait a second. How do you do that? You tell people to put sunscreen on so they don't get cancer, and then the sunscreen's full of stuff that's going to give them other things. And she's like, yeah, but here's what you need to look for. And I go, how does this happen? And it's the same thing that you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. So the sunscreen is interesting because we are incredibly vitamin D deficient as a country. We're not getting enough sun. We need sun. Sun is healthy. But we're just told the direction that we were given is avoid the sun entirely, never go outside, always be lathered in sunscreen. And then you saw last summer multiple sunscreens being taken off the market because of cancer-causing chemicals. So that's the irony, is that people are not informed. We're given bunk science because these companies pay for the studies. The entire situation is completely corrupt. And really, the president could make a decision tomorrow to help curb a lot of this.
Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.